I'm starting my YouTube vlog, politics vlog. As you know, writing those essays was getting a little bit tedious, you know. I've chosen this location because, you know, nothing says genius and wisdom like a bunch of World Book Encyclopedias and a skate or die jacket crew. That's right, skate or die. Actually, I've never skated in my life. Today the topic is safety first. Okay, everybody has seen this. Safety first. Safety is our #1 concern. Safety. But, what does that even mean? Yeah, so I was reading on Philly.com today. No disrespect to people at Philly.com, but this article titled "Put Road Safety First," and it goes on to talk about how some of the roads are deficient, how they're cracking, and they're gonna fall down because, you know, the government who takes care of the roads obviously isn't doing their job or whatever. They need to pay more. That's the gist of the article. But this idea that safety first is ridiculous. It's utterly nonsensical. So even though it's kind of this maxim and saying that we have in society, it actually doesn't make any sense at all. So let's think about safety first. I mean, if safety first is a misnomer, if the road transportation department's motto really was, I mean, probably their motto is safety first, but if they actually followed it, they wouldn't build roads. I mean, there's nothing safe about construction. There's nothing safe about building roads. There's nothing safe about driving on roads. The safety first, we would not drive. We wouldn't be in cars. I mean, it's not safe. So it's like, I mean, if that's their #1 goal, they're failing. I mean, if their #1 goal was safety first, they shouldn't dig things out of the mine. They shouldn't drive. I mean, you wouldn't do anything. I'll show you safety first right now. If safety was first for them, what would they do? The answer is nothing. In reality, what's first? I mean, for the mine, the first is getting the ore out of the ground. That's what's first. What's for transportation? It should be getting people to where they need to go as fast as possible. That's what transportation's for. As fast and as efficient as possible. That's what's first. I mean, you want to do that as safe as possible while you're doing it, but if safety were first, I mean, if your #1 goal is safety, you would be wrapped in saran wrap or bubble wrap and laying on a bed. Mike Rowe was talking about this a little bit. The guy from Dirty Jobs said I was on a crab ship, went into the captain, and he's like, OSHA, and captain looked at him and was like, no, ocean. And that was pretty good. But he's like, safety first. No, he's like, my job. The guy on the crab ship was like, my job is not to get you home alive. My job is to get you home rich. Full of crap. And of course that's his job. If his job was just to get him home alive, don't go out on the ship. I mean, just stay at home. The job is to go get some crabs. So just remember that. I mean, we get confused in the roads. That's why one of the reasons why our light system is so messed up. How we end up waiting at lights at night when there's, you know, there's 10 cars sitting there waiting to go in one direction, and there's no cars going the other direction, but of course we're stuck there waiting because, you know, it's a red light and we can't disobey a red light. Even though there's no cars going the other direction, we're just sitting there polluting the atmosphere with our idling cars, which, you know, is another safety problem. So, you know, trying to solve one safety problem, we just make another one. What is government for except to, you know, make more problems, make big problems out of little ones. So, anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Remember, safety isn't first, and if it is, just go to bed right now and just never get out of bed because, you know, safety first, you know, I'm just gonna sit here. So, yeah.